Film number one we're going to get into is Edge of Tomorrow. Edge of Tomorrow was released on May the 28th, 2014, directed by Liman, starring Tom Cruise as Major William Cage, Emily Blunt as Sergeant Rita Fataski, Bill Paxton as Major Sergeant Farrell, and Brendan Gleeson as General Brigham. A soldier fighting aliens gets to relive the same day over and over again, the day restarting every time he dies.
So, Carl, just correct me if I'm wrong, but this is your entry into the Hall of Fame, yeah?
Yes, this is my entry.
And I know you've been burning. I know you've been burning to have this conversation. So it's only right that you plead your case as to why you think it should go in the TMRG Hall of Fame first.
Now, this film caught me off guard. I watched it because it's Tom Cruise. I like what he does, but he'd gone on a run of a couple of the shit films he had.
In fact, before we go any further,
say it as it is, Amari. Say it as it is.
We shall not discuss the film that's the dot. You want me to
Amari,
discuss the dot?
We spoke about this, and I sent you the number for counselling.
Disgraceful. Like, you know when you're like, a film should go to court. No, this doesn't deserve court. It deserves to be deleted from history. That's what it needs to happen. No one should learn from it.
But we're not doing court here. We're talking about Hall of Fame.
Yeah, but we're talking about the bad run of films.
And the joke is, before we even go on to you continue what you were saying, what you said was after run of shit films. Yeah. And then as soon as Amari heard shit films, he lost it. He lost it. But the joke is, for someone to go on a run of shit films and then make this, the shit films would have had to become before this, not 3 years after this. So Amari totally didn't listen to anything you said. Yeah. Because the shit film that we're talking about was made in 2017.
Exactly.
This film was made in 2014.
It could be made in 2050. It's still shit.
That's twice in about 5 minutes, Amari.
I know. And let's not forget that the fact that he didn't even realise it was his turn to say his own name. Like let's not look at. But anyway, go on, Carl. Sorry.
It's hot today, isn't it? It's that heat.
Yeah.
Warm hot this day, isn't it?
It's gonna be a long night.
It really is, Amari, man.
It's gonna be a long pot. I can feel it now.
No, but I watched it. I watched it in the cinema, and I was just like, "Wow, this film blew me away." I was like, "This is the best action film I've seen in a while." Went back to watch it again, watched it 4 times in the cinema. Literally, I was that hyped about this film. I just loved everything about it. I loved the concept. This is what film made me start respecting Emily Blunt as well, because I didn't really rate her as an actress, but the Full Metal Bitch. Yeah, good to go.
Let me ask you a question, Carl. What exactly is it, or say was it, about this film that blew your mind?
I think I love the concept of the day starting over again. It's almost like a video game where you can't complete that level. You go back, you try again, you go back, try again and again. Because it was Tom Cruise, we're normally used to seeing him being the best, overcoming all the odds. So the fact he kept dying was brilliant, and I thought the comedy there was brilliant as well, and the action scenes brilliant. Loved it.
I will definitely agree with you on the comedy. I think one of the things that I enjoyed thoroughly about this film is the way that Tom Cruise doesn't take himself too seriously.
Yeah,
it was refreshing because, again, normally it's all about him. He has to be the guy to do everything himself and come out on top. But this, where, like you say, he was in a way a little bit of a loser.
Yeah.
And having the sort of female as the top dog, as it were, and him having to kind of work off of her lead, I thought that was really good.
Yeah.
Giles, you're pulling her face.
No, do you know what? I remember watching this at the time. I didn't watch it 4 times in the cinema. I did watch it once in the cinema. And I enjoyed it. I watched this on a rewatch with my daughter. And it was quite funny because I watched the other film with her as well. And it was interesting to kind of get her take on it as well, because she followed it to the T. So she even I thought and we watched both films back to back, and which is a lot for an 11-year-old to do. What I did like, again, I'd have to echo what Carl said. It was very much like a video game in the sense that it was like, okay, you go through this bit, then you can't complete that bit, but you get a chance to redo it. And actually, let's try something different the next time round. And I think the way, and literally that can become repetitive, but the way how they filmed it, where they only kind of, I like the way how they shot it in terms of they only focused on the bits that needed to remind you that it was
exactly
that going again. Do you understand what I'm saying? And I thought that was very, and even though that is the majority of the film, that, if you think about it, that's the bulk of the film, repeating that day. And then even I thought it was really clever even in their dialogue, the part where I think when they make it to the house, and he says, "Don't go outside."
Yeah,
because if you go outside, I've been through this scenario all these times, and she's like, he goes, "If you do that, that's gonna happen. That's gonna happen."
Yeah,
and it's so already even so, and it, obviously I don't know the runtime of the film, but like it's very hard to kind of do the same thing over and over and keep it fresh. And one of the things that I did like about this was the fact that they kept it fresh, kept it moving, as it were, even though it's what was the slogan? Live, die, repeat.
Repeat. Yeah.
And so I think I was very impressed with that.
Amari, what was your take?
On rewatch, I didn't enjoy the film as much.
What?
You heard what I said.
Please
I'm
explain.
not saying it's not a great film, but in terms of he's so upset as well. I couldn't see it. I don't even You don't even want you to hear it.
This one is a personal one for Carl. Yeah, this one is a personal one for Carl.
It's more literally because I was kind of like, I don't know. I was just like, I thought, you know what? The video game thing is in the net. Because when I watch, it's like when I used to play Championship Manager when I was a kid, and I was trying to win the league, and we got to the last game of the season, and I'm like, restart, and I'm kind of like, how many versions do you need to make one thing to happen?
As many as it takes.
And each version had its own element, as Giles was saying.
Yeah, but for me, I just like, okay. After like 4 or 5 attempts, I was like, okay, next.
Was there no intrigue for you though? Was there no intrigue of like where? Because for me, I thought
No, I'm not saying the film itself is not a great film, but I'm just saying on a rewatch, it was going to in my mind. This was Emily Blunt's third best film, and this was Tom Cruise's in his top 5. Going the fact that Tom Cruise has a lot of films, something in his top 5 has to be of substantial weight. That was before I watched it. But when I watched it again, I was just like, it doesn't give me that same... I don't have that same energy after watching it the first time. Because I remember I never watched this film. I actually missed it. And then I think we was doing a pod last year. And we was either talking on air or off air. And Kyle was talking about it. I was like, all right, cool, let me watch it. Boom. It was great. I would have gave it 5 stars. On that day I watched it, I was ready for it. But then I watched it again, I was like,
so is it fair to say?
Interesting.
Is it fair to say? Because again, and I want you lot to remember this part of the conversation, because when we get into the next film, I'm going to ask the same question, Mike, because I'll be interested to see what you say for that. But is it fair to say that because of the plot and the whole restarting, and you see certain films, once you've seen it once, it's like you can't really watch it again because
it's a one-time watch film. It's a one-time watch film.
I hear what you're saying.
Nah, I disagree.
For the simple reason is that I've seen it. And I never seen it done like this before. And if I ever see something like there was Groundhog Day and whatever, but in terms of action and stuff and sci-fi, boom, 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 ticks every boxes. But to watch it again, I'm like, I've seen it. Give me something different. This is so in essence, this is why I'm scared of Quiet Place 2. Just so we know.
But the thing is, you could say that about any action film.
This is true, but I feel like because of the nature of this film, I feel like I'm watching a sequel, even though it's not a sequel. I'm tired of watching the same thing.
But it wasn't the same thing. That was my thing. It wasn't the same thing. As Jao said, it was showing different elements of the same day. So like the bit when he tries to roll underneath the car and he gets hit by the car, they don't they don't then go and show that again. They show the next phase once he's past that phase. Yeah. So they're showing all the different phases. They kept it moving. Yeah, they didn't show the same scene.
There's the bit where the guy when he first lands on the beach.
Yeah.
And then the guy and he's like, I can't even be bothered. I'm not even going to bother moving. I'm not even going to bother warn him or push him out the way because it's just like he's realised that's not important to actually the day.
Exactly. That anyway.
It's a part of the day, and yes, I can. And again, that kind of lends into the whole comedy thing of it and him not taking himself so serious. Because like, yes, I could save his life, but he's going to die anyway, so it doesn't matter. There's been things where I've saved his life and he's died that way.
Exactly.
So I know that's going to happen, so I've saved his life again. He dies another way. So actually, that's not part of the mission. Like, that's not advancing the day any more than it can be advanced. So let me just cut the batty, literally, and just get to the point.
Yeah.
And just to add on to Kyle's point, and I think kind of what you're saying in rebuttal to Amari, for me, the sort of premise, because this is, I think, the second or third time I've watched it, and obviously knowing what's going to happen, knowing the plot of the film, it doesn't have the same impact. However, what makes it so good is the cinematography, the way that the action was filmed, from the shots of when he first drops out of the plane to the actual aliens, like, and this is what annoys me about Hollywood, because you're going, when was this film released? 2010, did you say? 2014. So that's 6 years, but we're watching films last year that CGI was worse than 6 years ago. And it's stuff like that, which I just think, if you could be doing it from, and there's another conversation to be had, because I watched Twister the other day and I was still blown away at the visual effects of that. So, but I just think the way that it was filmed, the action, the CGI, it's great. It keeps you in the film. It keeps you sort of energized and entertained. So even though you know the premise of the film, he's going to keep restarting. The way that it was actually filmed, for me, was one of the best things about this that I believe can enable you to keep going back to it. Carl, another point I wanted to make. Did you get vibes of Starship Troopers on this?
Not really.
I hear what you're saying. I can see what you're saying about this.
I can see
what you're saying about this.
But it was a different kind of humor to Starship Troopers, I would say. Starship Troopers was kind of mocking everything, I would say, whereas this wasn't really mocking things. But I get kind of what you're saying.
In terms of like how these army guys are mad. They are mad. Yeah. From that first general, what's the line he keeps saying? Wake up, maggot!
On your feet, maggot.
That's what I'm saying. To is it Bill Paxton?
Yeah,
Bill Paxton's guy. Yeah. To my favorite who gets the bomb. You'll have to remind me of his name, but it's my guy from Gangs of New York, the Irish brother.
Oh,
Brendan Gleeson.
Yes.
He was giving me jokes from the minute when Tom Cruise is trying to weasel his way out of the mission. And he says, okay, that's not a problem. The minute he leaves the room, arrest this man. Nah, the comedy was on point for me. Even the over-the-top seriousness of Emily Blunt, like even the way she was on some next... It worked. For me,
even when the guy... One of the guys on the squad tried to fight him and he's just moving his head left, right. Imagine if you tried to fight someone. He's not even looking. He's just moving.
I definitely got the humour of this. I thought it was very cohesive.
Too much.
What would you say was your favourite part of the film, Carl? Or what was it about the film that made you think, this is outstanding? Was it a certain scene or was it a certain
there wasn't
theme or
the
film?
Thing is it was all rounds that I was already into the action, I was into the comedy, but then I think where it took it to another level was when, again, like Charles was saying, the scene in the barn where they're talking about, do you know what it's like to see someone die every day. Like they added the emotional impact on top. That's what I was like, wow, this has actually got everything for me now. There's not one element that it misses. There's not one element at all. So I was just like, yep, that's just taking it over the top. So there is obviously scenes that when he's really got going and he jumps on the beach and then he runs around shooting them, I was just like, sick. But yeah, it was just, that was the final big piece that was like, nah, it's perfect.
It's funny because I'm just looking at who's the guy that directed it?
Doug Liman.
Yeah, I'm just looking at his some of the films he's done.
He's done Born
as well. Yeah, but he also done in 2008. He done Jumper, which
I didn't watch it.
I wasn't a big fan of Jumper.
No, neither was I. Neither was I. But it's the whole kind of, it's another science fiction-y film that he probably tried his hand at and didn't quite pull it off. So obviously he's kind of, for me, I think he's learned, he's matured in his filmmaking, 6 years later, and he's come with this, which for me was outstanding.
And can I just say on that point, in fact, I've got to drop a bomb. The end you actually deep, the plot and the sort of explanation of the aliens, the whole Alpha, Omega, the reason that I believe it's an Omega that gets killed and spills the blood on Tom Cruise, which enables him to try. Like, when you get these mad concepts, but then you're listening to it and you're thinking, that actually makes sense. Like, in a fantastical way. Yeah. They didn't really leave much space for too many questions to be answered. And obviously, as you start to see the evolution of them, like where they're trying to kill him, but then they're trying to do it in a way that I thought it was very, very well done.
Yeah, and it was funny because they still didn't even know what they were fighting. That's what they said. They don't even know what they're fighting, which could be similar to certain wars that happen in real life.
Well, there you go. And speaking of real life, I also love the way that from the way that the film starts and you're seeing these real publications. BBC, I think, was on there, CNN, and it normally, when you see them and it's some fake thing, but seeing the actual real,
it gives it more credence.
Yeah. Seeing him land in Trafalgar Square and then go like, I loved all of that. I'd love to know how much it cost to film that, but that's another.
That's a lot.
Well, I mean, their budget was about 180 mil.
Oh, was it?
Surprisingly, it didn't do that great.
Nah, it didn't. It didn't. I remember reading articles about that because.
But I think it's fair to say, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but outside of Mission Impossible, it's like people don't really care that much about Tom Cruise anymore. I feel like he's kind of, he's peaked.
At this point, he wasn't the same guy as he, because I said he released Oblivion, I think, came out before this, which was horrible.
Yeah. You said what? Take that back right now. Take it back.
You enjoyed Oblivion?
Take it back. I enjoyed the premise. I enjoyed the execution. Some people thought it was slow. You are slow and dim-witted if you thought that.
Oblivion was okay.
Give me a quick rundown of this film because I didn't see it.
I wouldn't say it's a great film. It's okay.
No, I believe it was. Listen, the concept that I can't tell the concept because people need to watch it, but that whole idea, and then I saw boss man storyteller come with his cigar. Boom! I was like, yeah, all right. I'm so involved. Give me more. Then I got more, and the joke is, I feel like. My girl was see, you got the same kind of character again. Anyway, his sci-fi films have energy. That's all I'm gonna say. Energy.
Okay, but
that's one way of putting it. That's one way.
He was on a run of bad films. As I think you had.
Here's a question
Jack
for
Reacher. That was dead.
Well,
Jack Reacher 1 was a good film.
It was
Jack Reacher 2 now.
Jack Reacher 2 was completely dead. Oh my god! And the joke is Jack Reacher 2 is called Never Go Back, and someone should have fucking told him that. I don't know why he went back to the fucking character, but it's actually awful.
Yeah,
it is. Oh my God. Jack Reacher had some substance to it. I'm just going to ask you. I enjoyed it as well. I'm just going to ask you, Carl. When you say his run of bad films, what period? Where do you think for you? Where did it start? And where did it?
All right, let me pull it up.
Where did it start?
Let me pull it up.
I've got it. So I'm going to go back.
Right.
So Collateral. We'll start from Collateral because that's 10 years. That's a 10-year. That's a decade.
So yeah? I'll give. So I love Collateral. That's 5 stars.
Come on,
right?
World of the World's 5 stars.
What?
Never seen. I never saw it.
That's 5 stars. Yeah, that's 5
for me.
That's Spielberg. I don't ever disrespect Spielberg and Tom Cruise. Yeah. Anyway,
War of the Worlds is piss poor.
What? Oh no!
It's 4 stars.
Yes.
I've never said that ever in my life about any Spielberg film. But I'll tell you where it started. So, I like Tropic Thunder, but then it's after that. So you had Valkyrie, wasn't really feeling that. Night and Day wasn't feeling that.
I actually watched Valkyrie 2 days ago.
I need to. That's when he it's the premise of killing Hitler, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's not. I guess Tom Cruise is levels to me. He's a top 5 guy for me. So these films are just okay. So when I say a run of, I guess it's not shit, but mediocre, I would say.
Yeah.
Night and Day, Dead.
Bit like War of the Worlds.
Nah, I enjoyed War of the Worlds.
I like Night and Day. Night and Day is an ITV2 film, just so you know.
Yeah.
Dead.
Channel 5.
Dead.
Netflix. Dare I say it? Netflix.
Night and Day.
Hey, listen. I'm actually moving more and more towards team Netflix films are shit. I'm just putting that out
there. There's quite a good few.
Give us that money. We'll produce better films.
Mission Impossible, obviously, that's his bread and butter. Then he had Rock of Ages.
But that number 3 wasn't that great.
Oh, I love all of them.
Number 3 was disgraceful.
Number 4.
Number 3 was disgraceful.
Number 3 is probably my favourite one. With Philip Seymour Hoffman.
You ain't seen the...
Oh,
no.
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
No, I'm not having that.
No, number 2 was bad. Number 3 was...
That might be
the best one was the last one.
That might be my
The best one was the last
one.
one.
The last 2 have been... I will go cinema. I see it on TV. I actually watch
all of them are like
on
that.
TV because I want to
no,
watch
they're
it.
not, Carl.
That's
no.
how lit the last 2.
What's it
What
on
did
now?
he say?
Is it 5? They're on 5 now.
No, 7.
No.
Yeah, 7.
6. Yeah, they just finished 6. They're on 7.
The next one will be 7.
Fallout.
Yeah, next one will be 7. Sorry, my bad. Yeah.
So Rock of Ages, Dead.
Because they're recording 7 and
Oblivion,
8
Dead.
together or some wild behavior. I don't know.
Yeah.
What it was. Pandemic might have said no, so I don't know what they're doing.
Fallout for me is the best one.
It's hard to say. I'll need to watch them all back to back.
All I know is that man did that whole scene with the helicopter without stunt. He did it himself. I ain't saying nothing.
That's Tom Cruise,
and to be fair, again, that's like, anyway, that's ratings. The fact that he's still at his age or for the last 10, 15 years has always been doing his own things is incredible.
No, but
putting a lot of people to shame.
He's coming from the days of Cocktail, where all he did was have cheesy one-liners and have a smile and look tall on camera to what he's doing now.
That's true.
It's mad.
But that's what I'm saying. He's a top 5 guy, and he's a top 5.
Yeah, he is. No, facts. Yeah, facts.
When he used those proper act, not even action films. Like Rain Man, A Few Good Men, Interview with the Vamp. Nah, he's levels. So it's time to see whether or not the first induction into the TMRG Hall of Fame will be Edge of Tomorrow. Giles, what is your vote?
Should it go into the Hall of Fame? I would say yes.
Yes.
I would say yes. Reasons being, again, I would agree with Amari in terms of, and I've said this before when we did the Friday review, and it's very hard to rewatch a film that you haven't chosen to rewatch. I think at some point we're all gonna come up against that sort of barrier. And with an action film, when you know where the action's going to take place, you know what's going to happen, it is quite hard to keep that fresh. That being said, in the 6 years since I've watched this, I was still entertained. I was still thoroughly entertained the whole way through. Like I said earlier, they did well to keep it fresh all the way through. I thought the CGI with the aliens was good. I love the fact that you could describe the aliens as the color being obsidian, which is that's a word. That's what
in words there, boy.
Listen, what a word! And the reason why that obsidian word has come to my attention. If you're a Call of Duty player, then you know all about obsidian camo. That's fucking hard to get. You got to play a lot of Call of Duty, and I play a lot of and I still haven't even got my first obsidian. But yeah, it was just all well put together. I like the fact that you had Emily Blunt as this, which you don't see too often. Like, she was the action hero. Mm-hmm. You know, he wasn't. Even though he was the star, he wasn't the action hero. You know, she had to teach him. And yeah, I just thought it was a fresh take on the action hero genre, which you don't see that often. You know, it steps outside the norm and, you know, gives another narrative. What I will say though, even though I'm going to put this in the Hall of Fame, I don't think that this is Tom Cruise's best science fiction film.
No, wait. Come on, listen. Well, I'm just throwing this out there from now. Minority Report.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, of course.
That's an easy conversation.
Spielberg, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's
no. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
That's arguably a top 20 film ever made. Really. So.
But yeah, so yes, it gets in for me.
Okay, Amari, what is your vote?
It was in the Hall of Fame, no doubt, before rewatch. But after rewatch, it's a conversation in my head. That's the problem. I don't want to have the conversation. I should just know. Bang, bang.
Don't listen to the voices, Amari. Don't listen to the voices.
My problem is, right, the way I see it is that I should know.
Which problem are we talking about?
Talking about the film problem, you idiot.
Hey, this is important, you know. This is important.
I know. I can see Carl sweating. Look at him. Man, he's sweating. Carl is listeners. So how we've got this set up is we're recording via our online app, but we're in a WhatsApp call, so we can see each other, and Carl is looking the most nervous I've ever seen him.
You know that Key and Peele gif where he's just sweating bears.
Yeah. Carl is taking sips of his drink in between taking sips. It's absolutely hilarious. Yes, Amari, sorry, we interrupted you. My bad.
No, it's okay. If I base it on the fact that he is top 10 of all time, and then I base it also on the fact that this film, without the rewatch, was in top 5 and then falls into the top 10 because of the rewatch, I can just about give the tolerance to put it in the Hall of Fame.
Ooh.
Yes, that's what I like to hear. You thought wisely.
But no. But you see the caveats I have to base it upon. There you go.
There's no caveats.
An entry is an entry,
though. Wait, is it a 5-star film?
Well,
it was 4 for me, but I'll get into that in a minute.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a 5-star before that.
I wouldn't say this was a classic. Was a classic.
All right, so Elliot, what is your vote?
Well, after watching this, because obviously this is the first Hall of Fame show, and I was thinking to myself, there has to be a margin that a film has to be to gain entry. I think it's fair to say that most 5 and 4-star films will go into Hall of Fame for them just being great all-round films. There may be submissions that may not be 4 stars, 5 stars, but a film doesn't have to be a 4 or 5 film to be in the Hall of Fame because it could be a personal reason. I thought this was a great film. As I just said, for me, it was 4 stars. It's not a classic. And again, in about 5 minutes, we're going to get into a conversation about what classic is. But for me, the only thing that was lacking, I guess, is, I don't know, at times I did feel like this, as good as this is, and I felt myself asking the question that we spoke about earlier on, would you rewatch a film like this where it's kind of linear? Because most action films are pretty, they're linear. There's not really many twists and turns and story development. Some there is, but most of the time it's, start and finish with the middle sort of minute might be a turn there. And I found myself saying, I don't feel it how you feel it, Carl. It was a great film. I loved the plot. The cinematography, as always, from the start was great. The humor, like Giles mentioned, Emily Blunt playing the sort of heroine, as it were, and Tom Cruise taking a bit of a backseat and coming across. I think I even said the weaseling of Tom Cruise. I liked him playing that role. It was like he was saying, look, let me not take all the, the spotlight. But for me, there wasn't enough overall for me to say, yeah, I could watch this film on a regular basis, like a couple times a year. But the film's great. It was a very good selection. It was a pleasure to rewatch it as well. So yeah, for me, this is definitely in the Hall of Fame.
Excellent. So that means that Edge of Tomorrow is our first entry into the TMRG Hall of Fame.
Those movie review guys.
Subscribe to the podcast and stream full episodes on all major platforms.